It's the amazing Rico Brogna podcast with your host, Evan Roberts.
Thank you for not losing a damn series to the Miami Marlins. Thank you. Thank you to Huáscar Brazoban. Thank you to Peter Jefferson Aloysius Alonso. Thank you, New York Mets, for escaping what would have been a mini early season crisis. It would have been a mini early season crisis, but you just know, and I've got proof that it would have been an early mini season crisis based on the freaking emails at the ricob@gmail.com, because it was panic city throughout the Mets' late afternoon, early night victory against the Miami Marlins. But at the end of the day, it was ugly. It was disgusting. It was stressful. But the New York Mets pull one out of their derriere. They defeat the Miami Marlins by a final score of 6-5 and 11. We will recap that game. We'll also recap the series. We'll look ahead to the home opener, and we will announce probably the most obvious Rico star of the series we will ever do. Because unless you just didn't watch, there is only one man, only one person that could be crowned the Rico star of the series. And let's start with that guy, because that guy bailed this limp dick offense out. That man whose name was dragged through the mud all of last season. That man whose name was even dragged through the mud during the offseason by some of you Met fans out there. Pete Alonso saved the Mets' ass. And I think what I'm frustrated with myself about is we've done a bunch of Rico since this season started. And I remember after opening day, we were talking about the great at-bats he had. Like, damn, he's had some really good at-bats. And really throughout this season, he's mostly had days in which his at-bats have been good. Maybe not in game 2 of this series against Miami, but he's worked a lot of 3-2 counts, which I've cited here on the Rico. He's really laid off a lot of pitches that a year ago he'd be hacking at. So even if the results weren't obvious, even if they weren't in your face, if you've watched every pitch, which I know a lot of you Ricoers out there do, if you've watched every swing, every non-swing, every at-bat Pete Alonso has taken in the early going of 2025, you know he's been different. You know it. You've seen it. You've watched it. And sometimes when you consume as much baseball as we do, you can tell when a guy's going to explode. That came out weird, but you know what I mean. You can tell when a guy is about to get hot. And I think through the first 6 games of the season, it's actually been obvious with Pete Alonso. He hits the grand slam in game 1, fantastic, a long at-bat. And then in game 3 of this series on Wednesday, late afternoon, early evening, Pete Alonso rips an RBI double in the first inning. He rips a double a few innings later. The one time they get him out, he hits a line drive right at the left fielder. Every ball Pete Alonso hit in game 3 of this series was over 105 miles an hour. My dad sometimes doesn't like exit velo. And what I would say to him and anyone else is, yeah, the name exit velo is annoying. It just means the guy's hitting the crap out of the ball. That's all it means. It means something we have seen our entire lives as baseball fans. A guy is pummeling the freaking baseball. And Pete Alonso pummeled the baseball all day today. Pete Alonso has had great at-bats since this season has started. And so when Pete Alonso came up in a desperate situation, because Juan Soto didn't do much in this game, Francisco Lindor did have a base hit in that 8th inning, but outside of that, didn't do that much in this game. Pete Alonso, which he did not do much of last year, but obviously he did in the postseason, especially game 3 against the Brewers. Pete Alonso reminded you and reminded everybody in this lineup who the hell he is. He puts together this awesome at-bat in which he fouls 3 sliders in a row off. And as this at-bat is going on, full disclosure, I'm in my car, and I'm not watching the game while I'm driving. I'm glancing at the game while I'm driving. I'm trying to be very safe. This was a 4:40 first pitch. I'm on the air till 6:30. If you listen to our program on WFAN, I cannot DVR a game in which, we're on the air. So I consume the first part of the game while live on the air, and then I'm driving home with the game on, but I'm mostly focused on the road. And as Pete Alonso is fouling pitch after pitch after pitch off, I don't know why, but I felt good. And I felt confident. And I felt like this is going to end well, even though the Mets had missed so many opportunities in this game. So many opportunities before Pete Alonso bailed everyone's ass out. I mean, go back to the fourth inning when Pete Alonso started a rally with a rip double. And Brandon Nimmo, to his credit, drove him over to third on a sacrifice fly. Little ball. I got no issue with it. I'd love for Brandon Nimmo to drive him in, but at least advance him to third base. And then Mark Vientos, more on him later, and his mental issues, and Jesse Winker strike out. And they miss an opportunity there. They've got a runner on second with 2 outs in the fifth after Hayden Senger gets his first major league hit, and April Lindor does what April Lindor does. They get a leadoff walk in the seventh when nothing is close to Jesse Winker, and Mark Vientos, again, battling these mental demons, strikes out before Brett Beatty, who's writing his ticket back to AAA, bounces into a double play. They were failing all day long, just like they were failing in game 2, and they were failing even in game 1 outside of the grand slam and a couple of home runs. They have missed out on opportunities to drive runs in with the runners in scoring position. And as Pete Alonso kept fouling slider after slider after slider after slider off, I don't know why I felt good. Because, and this is the real test, ask yourself this as a Met fan, be honest. Did you trust him? Did you think to yourself, if there's anybody I could pick on this team to come up in this situation, would it be Pete Alonso? Now, in this moment, April 2nd, April 3rd, April 4th, the answer to me was Pete Alonso. Now, that's not the answer most of the time. I'm sure most of the time the answer will be Juan Soto. There'll be times where it'll be Francisco Lindor. But again, look at those at-bats. Look at what he had done in this game. Look at the grand slam from 2 days ago. Hopefully this has eliminated this talk that he can't get big hits. The same gobbledygook I heard last year. He can get big hits. He's capable of big hits. He didn't get a lot of them last year. But it doesn't mean he can't. And as he hit that fly ball to center field, as it traveled into the beautiful Miami night with the dome open, which is very strange, I'm screaming while I was at a red light, so I was able to look. My glancing was okay. Get out of here. Get out of here. And Pete's kind of cocky way of stopping as he hit that ball, if you're watching on TV, led you to believe Pete knew it was out. But as it got out, it was the only time so far this season, not even the Grand Slam a few days ago, in which I, as a Met fan, yelled out in audible, "Fuck yeah!" I felt good. You should feel good. We all should feel good. Because Pete Alonso is off to a start that makes you believe this season is going to be different than last season. It is only 6 games. We keep that in mind with the good. We keep that in mind with the bad. But damn, that was tremendous. That was an OMG-esque moment from a year ago. You're down 4-1. You've played garbage defense. You've done everything to lose this game. Juan Soto can't get a big hit. Francisco Lindor, despite being a part of that rally, can't get a big hit. And Pete Alonso comes through with an awesome 3-run home run. Now, Hoff, I know you are very busy, and I know a lot of people may not have been able to watch this live because it's 4:40 first pitch. How did you consume or find out about the Pete Alonso game-tying 3-run home run?
I can't even believe it. By Brandon Tierney. I got a text message as after I step off the field, I get a text message at 7:24. BT says, "You better start tweeting out MVP soon. Bring that back." And I'm like, oh shit, what happened? Because I got to be honest with you. I left, it was 2-1 Marlins. I'm like, this is just such a crappy game. I look at my phone about 10 minutes before and I see it's 4-1. And I'm like, they're going to lose this freaking game to the Marlins. I mean, I know Clay Holmes didn't pitch all that great with all that stuff, but like, you telling me they're going to lose to this team again? This Marlins team is crap. And then I see that text, and I'm like, what happened? And I see it's 9-9 going into the 10th. And I'm like, why did I have to go to practice? Why did I have to run to practice for these 8-year-olds? They don't care.
But hey, listen, you'll always be able to remember when you think back to the 2025 season that it was BT telling you, get those MVP tweets back out there.
And I did. And it's going to happen over and over all season long, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, so as the Mets are losing this game, we'll get into every detail of this game and a lot of other things here on this series recap of Rico Brogna, episode 456. What's going through my mind after they can't really take advantage of the opportunities they had against Connor Gillespie was you have 4 innings against the Marlins bullpen. You've got 4 innings against guys that up until this series, we had never heard of. Lake Bacher is going to shut you down. Calvin Fauché is going to shut you down. Venziano, the lefty who we saw the other night, is going to shut you down. So as the 6th inning begins and they are trailing this game 2-1, yeah, I'm sharing that thought. I think most of us are, which is you're going to have another limp offensive performance against this? Like, I think what we were able to rationalize, or at least I was able to, against Houston was Houston's got good pitching. Yeah, you got shut down by good pitching. It sucks. Obviously, after a while, you're not okay with it, but you don't want to get shut down by what, let's be honest, is probably borderline minor league pitching. And the missed opportunities. And like, I was annoyed about the defense. We'll get into that coming up in a second. But it was more the offense. You know, we talk about this a lot here on the Rico. If the Mets are going to be good this season, the identity is going to be they're going to score a lot of runs. Doesn't mean we excuse when the defense sucks or we excuse when the pitching is mediocre, and we will call that stuff out, which I'm about to do. But this team's got to score 5-6 runs a game. That's who they are. That's what they're capable of. And as we saw in the early innings, really until Pete's at-bat in the 8th inning, they were just completely underachieving, and it's more than one guy. So before we get to the defense, I guess this will morph into the defense. Let's go to Mark Vientos. It is 6 games into the season, so good and bad. You don't want to panic by what you're seeing. But I think what concerns me right now about Vientos after his 0 for 5 is not the 083 batting average. It's he looks mentally shook. That's the way it looks. We go back to game 2 of this series. We did a Rico Brogna episode 455 in which we recapped game 1 and game 2. And one of the things I brought up on that Rico was Vientos giving up on a play. A ground ball to third base in which there was a bobble by the third baseman, Graham Pauley, and Vientos shut it down. And he was thrown out by a half a step. So the next day, which is Wednesday, Vientos addresses it by saying it'll never happen again. And I thought what was a great sign was that he mentioned Mendy, Antoine Richardson, and Francisco Lindor talked to him about it. And I'm like, okay. At this point, by the way, still not concerned about his offensive slump. It's early. He's had a couple of extra base hits. It's an early part of the season. I didn't think his at-bats have been that awful. Okay, makes a mental mistake. I'm not worried. But this game on Wednesday, the finale of this series, worries me because not only was he flailing at sliders out of the strike zone, not only was his at-bats garbage, but he looks like you could tell with the body language of him. He looked shook, and it continued again. The Mets had a bunch of defensive miscues in this game. Vientos was a part of 2 of them. And in my opinion, a big one. Because in the 3rd inning, as Clay Holmes is trying to work through that rough spot, Mark Vientos fields a ground ball with 1st and 3rd and 1 out. And I don't think he's going to turn a double play. But at that point, it's a 1-1 game. Get the guy out at second. Get the lead out. Or not the lead out because that would be the runner that he tried to throw out. But get the guy out at second. Try to turn a double play. If you don't turn the double play, no harm, no foul. At least there are 2 outs in the inning. And Clay Holmes has a chance to at least work his way out of it, only down 2-1. And instead, he uncorks this incredibly awful throw, not even close to Hayden Singer. So defensive miscue number 1, not only the physical mistake of the wild throw home, but I think the mental mistake that at that point in the game, I know the Met offense has done dick. I understand that, but get the guy out at second. Get the easier out. Mistake number 2, I think is probably worse. Go back to that 7th inning where we all thought the Mets were definitely losing this game because it was 2-1 at that point. And Mark Vientos, and Gary Cohen was right. He called him out for this, gave up on a play again. There is a chopper to third, And Vientos, who's standing in foul territory, fields the baseball in foul territory, but the ball is clearly in fair territory. So his body is standing in foul territory. The ball is in fair territory, and he almost paused like, it's a foul ball. It's called a fair ball. Has no chance to throw the runner out first, has no chance to get the lead runner. And it was another one of those, oh my God, this guy's breaking down on the field in front of our eyes. And then you look at some of his later at-bats, it was the same crap. It was the same garbage. He ends up 0 for 5. He has a horrible defensive game. He's hitting 083. But my concern for Mark Vientos is this. I'm pointing to my brain right now. It's the mental aspect of it. And I don't know if it's the pressure of the expectations he faces. I don't know if it's just, human nature. He's getting down on himself because he is off to a bad start, mostly mentally than anything. But he's out of whack, and he needs an off day. Now, luckily, the Mets have an off day, so it doesn't involve Carlos Mendoza needing to bench him, which it may come to. I'm not there yet. Now, we're going to go through some emails a little bit later on, and there are about 112 in my mailbox just from the last 6 hours, which shows you there was a lot of reaction to the finale of this series. Usually a given game, there's 15 or 20. There's over 100. It's crazy. And one of the emails that I hope I'll get to, but it's tough because there's a lot, was a guy saying that Mark Vientos should be sent down to the minors. Now, I think that's extreme. Okay, I'm not going to the level that Mark Vientos should be sent down to the minor leagues by any stretch, but we can call him out. I think that's fair. We can discuss the fact that this game, Game 3 against Miami, looked like a game in which he was mentally beaten. The defensive miscues, the at-bats being as pathetic as they are. I think it is very important and imperative for Francisco Lindor, who's clearly the captain and has a relationship with him. They work together a lot on defense the last 2 years. He's one of the guys, along with Mendy and Anton Richardson, who went over to him after the lack of hustle play from Game 2 of this series. I think you almost have to put your arm around him. Like, this may not be a tough love situation. This may be a, bro, we believe in you situation. But he's a mess. Now, he's not the only one. Francisco Lindor, to his credit, comes up with a very big hit in the 8th inning that set up the Alonso 3-run home run. But outside of that, he takes a 1 for 5. He's 2 for 20. He's done nothing. and even in the at-bat where he got the hit, the 3-1 cutter that he's swinging at, that's well inside, I don't think Lindor makes that mistake when he's locked in. And he's not. And I don't know, should we just expect that, well, it's April, so just deal with it for the next 4 weeks? I don't know. As long as Lindor is not making the brutal defensive plays that we saw in Game 2, I guess it's okay. It's not really okay because it's going to be tough for this offense to survive with Lindor, basically hitting 100, but it's typical. And there's a difference between worried about a player and just calling out what we're seeing. And what we're seeing is another April slump from Lindor. Juan Soto. Juan Soto is not immune to some criticism. He has not looked the sharpest his last few games. Now, the reality is with Soto, and this is the beauty of what Pete did, what I think is going to make this lineup special, I still believe that despite their struggles, is that they have a lot of guys that can pick each other up. Juan Soto is not going to be locked in the entire season. Not going to happen. Pete Alonso is not going to be locked in the entire season. So I appreciate that even with Soto's struggles lately, and lately it's a couple of games, didn't draw any walks in this game, had a couple of key opportunities in which he's grounding out and popping up, you need others to step up. And so credit to Alonso for doing that. But Juan Soto, all of a sudden, is off to a coolish start. Brandon Nimmo did have a hit in this game, but he hasn't done very much. Jesse Winker did draw a couple of walks in this game. He hasn't done very much. And then we get to Brett Baty. We talked about this on the last Rico. How patient can one be with Brett Baty? And the answer, and this comes from a guy that supported him getting the opportunity coming out of spring training because I think he earned it. My patience is thin. It just is. This is a results business. That's what it is. He lost his third base job because he didn't perform. It's only been 6 games, but he's not exactly showing you any signs of life. Luis Angel Acuna shows you some signs of life. He does. So I'm getting closer to that moment as they continue to face nothing but righties against Toronto. I am getting closer to saying, all right. Because here's the other thing. Let's go through these defensive miscues. We already mentioned Mark Vientos' wild throw home in the third inning instead of trying to turn a double play. We already mentioned Mark Vientos giving up on a foul ball on that little chopper in the seventh inning. Already mentioned that. We've already talked. Oh, no, we haven't yet. Tyrone Taylor doesn't know how to judge a freaking fly ball. That was a big part of the third inning with Clay Holmes. So now we have addressed that. How about Brett Beatty, who got his ass completely bailed out by an overturned call that I am stunned they overturned? Edwin Diaz, who can't hold anybody on base. I can run on Edwin Diaz, which is a problem. But runner on third, less than 2 outs, eighth inning, ground ball right at Brett Beatty. Easiest play in the world. And while it wasn't a wild throw, it wasn't a Lucas Duda throw or a Jeremy Reed throw, deep cut right there. That is a deep cut. Mets, Dodgers, 09, whatever. His throw is just enough up the first base line that gives Terens too much time to catch it and apply the tag. And look, the replay was very, very close. It was a wonderful challenge by Carlos Mendoza. Why the hell not? And I put it this way. Here's what I'd say about this challenge and overturn. And this is the way I like to walk through life. In fact, I was having a conversation with my son recently before we started the Rico and he went to sleep about treat others the way you want to be treated. It's a very important lesson in life. And I'm teaching that to him. And I try to go through life that way too. Treat people the way you want to be treated. How would you feel if that was done to you? So Met fans, how would you feel if that overturn happened to us? And the answer is we'd be screaming and yelling. That's the reality. We would be bitching. Hoff would be, they got to get rid of replay. Replay sucks. Like, we would have lost our mind because there was not conclusive evidence that the runner, I think it was Xavier Edwards, didn't score the game. So notes and memories, credit to me, I guess. There was no conclusive evidence he was out. And you could even hear in the voice of Gary and Keith, they were stunned. Now, I'll take it. I'll take any break we can get. I do not give back breaks because they had plenty of crap go their wrong way. They've had injuries go the wrong way. They've had bounces go the wrong way. So I'll take it. But my God, was Brett Beatty bailed out. And I bring this up because it's important. Just because you got an overturned call doesn't mean we should ignore the fact that Brett Beatty made a throw that I don't know if Luis Angel Acuna makes. I give Acuna credit. Despite the error on opening day, his defense has mostly been fantastic. So the defense by the New York Mets continues to be dog crap, and it needs to change. Sorry, this is morphing into such a negative. I'm happy. The Mets won. They're 3-3. I'm in a very good mood.
Oh, wait, listen, can we give a little positive here? You say how bad the defense was. Can we get to extra innings and remind people that, like, there were some smart plays? There were some really good plays. Francisco Lindor was able to, stop a runner from basically scoring and losing the game. I mean, that was a little positive, no?
No, here's the real positive on defense. I will get to positives. I will tell you this, though. Opening day is almost here. So why don't you knock one out of the park and raise the apple with Takara Chuhai, a sparkling cocktail that blends real Sochu spirits with the delicious flavors of fruits locally grown in Japan. It's available at Citi Field in Fuji Apple, of course, white peach and lemon. I've got my Takara Chuhai right here. Isn't that nice? You got one over there too, Hoff? Look at you.
I got a lemon. I got the white peach.
Nice.
Come on, let's go. And they're chilled too. Let's freaking. I think I might have to pop one after this series.
Let's go. All right, let's get to but you want positives on defense? Let me give you positives on defense.
Yes.
Luis Terens is Johnny Bench. This guy throwing out base runners at second. Oh my God. Fantastic. And I do have a confession to make because what I do like to do here on the Rico is I'm honest about first guesses. Not just don't come on and bitch about Mendy moves and second guess the crap out of them. We need to be fair about first guesses. So I have got a first guess that I had in my car on Carlos Mendoza that is arguably, Hoff, one of the worst timed, aged poorly first guesses one can have. And I'm not going to hide from it. I didn't tweet it out. It doesn't live on record anywhere, but I want to always be honest with you. And I want to walk you through why I thought it was weird and then how amazingly it worked out and how Carlos Mendoza is a genius. So I want to take you to the 8th inning. The Mets are trailing by a score of 4-1 in the 8th inning. And Tyrone Taylor leads off by making out. I forget what he did, but he made out. Grounded out, popped up, struck out. Who the hell cares? There's 1 out and nobody on. They're down 4-1. This is the moment where the game was the most, I guess, the closest to the Mets losing. Down by 3 runs, 5 outs to go. The game is essentially over. And Hayden Senger is due to hit. Of course, Hayden Senger made his first major league start in this game and actually had a double. So Senger is due to come up, and Mendy sends up a pinch hitter, which I'm managing along, of course. Why wouldn't you send up a pinch hitter? The Marlins have no lefties in their bullpen. The one lefty that they have in their bullpen, they've already used. So I just want that as background. They have a right-hander on the mound, and Mendy goes to Luis Torrens. I didn't like it because, and here's my thought. I know I'm going to Torrens anyway. I understand. So I guess I'm saving a bench spot. But I have Starling Marte. I do. I have Jose Siri. I do. I have Luis Angel Acuna. But really, I have Starling Marte. I want to go back to him. I have a good hitter in Starling Marte on my bench. And I don't think I'm going to need to use him as a pinch hitter anywhere else because the Marlins don't have a lefty in their bullpen. So it's not like, hey, I'm going to pinch hit Jesse Winker with Starling Marte. And I'm not really going to use him for Beatty because the odds are Acuna is going to replace him anyway. So my thought was, why am I using Torrens, who, yes, he's hit so far this season, but don't we all agree Starling Marte is a better hitter than Luis Torrens? So that's my first guess. And I will defend myself by saying everything I laid out, like, it's fair, right? I didn't say anything incorrect. Marte was never even used in this game. They could have used Starling Marte, right? Watch, it's going to come out that he was hurt or something like that. But I thought that's the guy I'd use. Not Jose Siri, not even Luis Angel Acuna. It's Starling Marte. I pinch hit Senger with Marte, 1 out, nobody on. I try to get the inning going, and then, of course, Torrens ends up coming into the game. Well, Torrens starts the 8th inning rally. So, number one, it aged badly because Torrens comes through with a base hit. The defense part, I guess, would have happened anyway. But then, in the bottom of the 8th, top of the 9th, bottom of the 10th, bottom of the 11th, you've got Johnny Bench behind the plate. And that may seem like hyperbole to many of the older listeners. Obviously, he's not Johnny Bench, but my God, does he throw guys out. Now, he's not a miracle worker. So when Edwin Diaz is on the mound and he doesn't hold anybody on, so even I can steal off of him, Torrens won't even throw to second. So technically, it's not him not throwing someone out. It's Edwin Diaz. But how about Torrens continuing to be an absolute cannon behind the plate, throwing 2 more guys out? He's unbelievable. He really is. So as bad as the defense was elsewhere, the defense with Torrens, very, very good. One other weird play. We'll get to Clay Holmes. We'll get to your emails. A lot of other things to get to. The A.J. Minter balk ball play. I don't know how often I've ever seen this. I don't remember ever seeing it. I'm sure I have because it's rare, but it can't be like it never happens. A.J. Minter is on the mound, runner on second, nobody out. This is the 7th inning that he's in. And he trips. Now, luckily for Minter, he's okay. So it wasn't a trip in which he tore anything and he's hurt. But he trips and still releases the baseball. So you see Minter, as it's, of course, called a balk, because if you trip off the mound, it's a balk. We've kind of all seen that. But Minter starts to argue the reverse tuck call and say, I threw a pitch. And I think he was right. And Gary Cohen was the best with it because Gary knows everything. And if you don't believe he knows everything, he will remind you. Gary Cohen even's like, I don't even know what the rule is here. But it does appear like Minter threw a pitch. And that could have been a big swing in this game because it's a balk instead of a ball. So instead of runner on third, 0-1 count, it would have been runner on second, 1-1 count. That was a very, very weird play, But I got to tell you, it did look like it was an A.J. Minter ball and not an A.J. Minter balk. So very strange play. Handling of the bullpen was weird, but it makes sense on why. Obviously, Clay Holmes threw a ton of pitches. I'll get more in depth on his start coming up in a few minutes. He goes to Reed Garrett at the right time. Garrett gets the 4 outs, getting through the 5th, getting through the 6th. He goes to Minter in the 7th, pulls him clearly when he doesn't have it. Ryan Stanek gives up that horrible 2-out hit to Nick Fortes, which gave the Marlins the 4-1 lead. But then the Diaz in the 8th inning thing is it's a tricky spot because the Mets are down 4-1 in the top of the 8th. Diaz has barely pitched. He has not pitched since Friday, right? The Mets have an off day on Thursday. So if Diaz doesn't pitch in this game, which Mendy clearly wants to get him in on, wants to get all of his big arms in just to get them some work, Edwin's going to go a full week without pitching. Not ideal. You don't want to overwork him, but you want to at least have him, pitching on some kind of regular basis. So he has him warming up to pitch the 8th because if the Mets don't rally down 4-1, fine, come in, keep the game close. We get an inning out of you. Pete hits the home run, and naturally you're thinking, well, it's a tie game in the bottom of the 8th inning. You'd rather use someone else so you can keep Diaz available to possibly pitch with a save situation or in a tie game in the 10th inning with the runner on second row. But because he was warming up, what are you going to do? I mean, you're not going to screw around with him. As Mickey Callaway used to say, you're not going to dry hump him. You're just going to go to him. So I get it. I got no issue with it because walk yourself through that situation. How else are you going to handle it? It just puts you in a weird spot in the 9th and 10th inning. I did not think that Diaz was going to be an option to pitch 2 innings for anybody that thought about it. He threw 16 pitches, but even if it was 9 or 10 pitches, it's too early in the season. It's just, it's not the right time. But now the problem you run into is, all right, Diaz gets the job done, helped out by the instant replay review. You only have Budo, Young, and Brazaban available. Budo, I love Big Budo, and I cannot lie, does a wonderful job. Gets his 2 innings, pitches the 9th, pitches the 10th. I did think, you know what? Can Budo come out and actually pitch a 3rd inning? And the reason I thought it is Budo barely threw any pitches. In fact, you ready for this? Jose Budo throws 2 scoreless innings. He threw 15 pitches. So he did not pitch a lot. So I thought, all right, well, why not have him come out for a 3rd inning? Obviously, the Mets take the lead in the 11th in the most, let's be honest, unimpressive way humanly possible. After they failed to take advantage of the runner on second rule in the 10th inning, Tyrone Taylor dumps that hit in. They got 1st and 3rd, nobody out. And that's when Torrens pops up, Lindor pops up, Soto grounds out, kind of a part of all 3 of those guys, or really 2 of those guys. Lindor and Soto struggles, not being able to take advantage of a great opportunity in the 10th. Should have been their undoing, but Budo did a great job in the bottom of the 10th inning. But they end up winning the game, obviously, on the Winker walk, and Vientos basically grounds out, but Xavier Edwards makes a miscue. So at least the Marlins pay us back after we've played such crappy defense. They play some bad defense. So have the lead, 2-run lead, bottom of the 11th. Stick with Budo. And this is the first guess that I stand by on Carlos. He goes to Danny Young. Danny Young sucks. I'll just be blunt about it. He's not any good. I don't care if there's a lefty up. It doesn't matter. Like, really, Danny Young's a lefty specialist. Forget the lanes, forget the lefties, forget the righties. Brazaban has looked good so far this year. Let him close out the game. You got 2 options, in my opinion, and they're both fine. You leave Budo in because he's barely thrown any pitches, or you go to Brazaban and give him a clean inning, and instead we get Danny Young? Ugh. And Danny Young did his best to blow this game. Now, I'll give Danny Young a little bit of credit for this. He comes in, he immediately gives up an RBI single, which sucks. He walks Kyle Stowers, and now he's forced to face a 3rd hitter in Griffin Conine, and he does strike him out. So it could have been worse. He could have loaded the bases up for Brazaban. I thought he was, but he's at least able to get that 1 out, and then Huascar Brazaban. You talk about a guy that's making a bid for the Circle of Trust. He's not only making a bid to remain on this team, that's obvious. He's making a bid to enter the circle. And he gets the fly out of Jonah Bride, and he strikes out Otto Lopez, and put that bitch in the books as the Mets beat the Miami Marlins. Oh, one other thing. SNY. And you know I love SNY. We have a deal with SNY. Evan and Tiki's on SNY. I want everybody, I want the camera people at SNY to send Gary Cohen a letter that says, thank you for bailing our asses out. Because there is one thing as a baseball consumer that drives me nuts. And SNY does it. Yes does it. ESPN does. Everybody does it. And that is when the camera angle fools you. Like there's a fly ball to left field or there's a fly ball to right field, and they only show you the stands. They don't actually show where the ball is, so you assume it's a home run. Well, there was a sequence in the... Did I write this down? I may have written this down because it pisses me off. Hold on. Can I find it? Yeah, I guess I did. Oh, here we go. In the 9th inning with Budo. Budo got Otto Lopez on a ball that was hit very deep to center field, but you could tell. Graham Pauley comes up and hits one to right field. If you had it on mute and you didn't hear Gary Cohen, all they're showing you is the right field stand. You think it's a home run. You think the game is over. You think Graham Pauley just did a walk-off and the Mets lose. And instead, Gary Cohen's call was he gets under it to right. Now, granted, Gary's not perfect. Francisco Lindor got under one to center in game 161, but in this case, he was right. And it saved us from the emotional distress of thinking Graham Pauley hit a home run to then saying, oh, all right, it was caught. The game continues. So great job by Gary Cohen. Now let's get to Clay Holmes. Clay Holmes was not bad. Clay Holmes was good. Clay Holmes, despite a pitching line of 4 2/3 innings, 6 hits, 2 runs, 1 earned, 2 walks, and 85 pitches in 4 2/3 innings, Clay Holmes gives me legitimate hope based on this performance that this whole thing can work. He threw his changeup a million times. That was a pitch he did not use a lot of in his first start. He used it as much as he used any other pitch. So we saw Clay Holmes kind of widen the repertoire. That's number one. Number two, he kind of got screwed in this game. You've got Tyrone Taylor not being able to judge a fly ball. You've got Mark Vientos making that miscue. This felt very Yankee-like. You know, when Clay was a Yankee, it felt like there would be a command issue, there would be bad luck on weak contact, and there'd be bad defense. That's kind of what happened. Most of the time, I am going to want more than 4 2/3 innings. We all are. But I think the circumstances that he was put in, not all on him, leaves me leaving this start thinking, I think this can work. I feel good. I think the jury is still out, obviously, on Clay. Now, I'll tell you this, they need Clay Holmes. With the Sean Manaea injury, Frankie Montas is still a long ways away. Who knows about Paul Blackburn? They need Clay Holmes. And it's funny, Hoff. Remember when they signed Clay and naturally you, me, and everyone else was like, oh, well, they may end up moving him to the bullpen. They may need him in the bullpen. We're only a week into the season, but need-wise, it's not even close. They need him as a starter more than they need him out of this bullpen.
No question. But on the other hand, too, it's weird. Like 4 2/3 is more than half the game, right? Or is it close to half the game? Well, except for when you go to extra innings. So then, no, it's not.
It's basically half the game. It's 9 1/3 innings if you double it. Yeah.
Right. But the point being is that it's like, so it's good, but he's just acting as a long reliever right now. We need to have some sort of length. This is unsustainable for sure. He can't do this the entire season.
But I think the reason he threw so many pitches was more about his defense more than it was him.
Yeah. That's true, but I mean, listen, he out of every starting pitcher on this Mets roster has hit the cap of, I'm pretty sure he was getting deeper into games earlier than anybody else in spring training. I think he was up to 70 pitches already in the first few, towards the end of spring training. Last week, I think it was 77. Now he's 85. I think they got to give him, he needs to be able to prove he can go another inning and more pitch.
I think in this case, now obviously the defense contributed to it, but I think the main reason he was pulled was not 85 pitches, even though maybe it is. I think it was more situational. He just gave up a base hit to Otto Lopez. He has Reed Garrett warming up in the bullpen to go after lefty and Graham Pauley. I think it was more situational. Hey, it's a big spot. It's a close game. It's still 2-1, 2 outs in the 5th inning. Let me go to one of my better relievers in Reed Garrett to go get the out. So I think it was more situational from Mendy, not, hey, I've got to be careful with him. But look, I agree with you. He's got to go deeper into games. I mean, the Mets are going to need more depth from their starting pitching. There's no doubt. but it would help. It would help if their defense is a little bit more consistent. Like Tyrone Taylor catching a fly ball would be pretty cool.
Well, I mean, listen, let's be serious here. He's taking a step back in my lovable Mets fandom here. I'm kind of like, is Canario still available? Can we bring him back somehow? But let me just say something about Clay Holmes too. Here's the other thing. He is somebody right now that I think going deeper in games is definitely something that's going to be available. But he also just doesn't have this this power pitch that I'm looking for right now. Something about him is just a little bit off. That again, it's two starts in the game, 2 starts in the season. It's very early, but something about Clay Holmes is just a little bit off. I need to see a little bit more than anything. Again, you could talk about the defense. He needs to do more as well.
Absolutely. His first 2 starts are weird. It's tough to gauge him because he hasn't gone deep into the game. There is a lot of weird bad luck involved, but it wasn't bad. And again, full transparency, I'm trying to watch the game as well as I can because I'm on the air during the Clay Holmes portion of the game. But he wasn't bad. He wasn't great. We've been rating performances here on the Rico Brogna. I would probably say it was like a borderline B- or C+. I think what hurts, and it's kind of what you said, I need 5 innings. I need a starter to go 5 innings into a game. 4 2/3. When that innings performance starts with a 4, that's a tough one for me.
It would also help too if the offense, put up 10 runs while Clay Holmes is on the mound, because then maybe you can give him a little bit more wiggle room.
Look, that's the other thing. I mean, when you look at the Mets starting pitching performance, now we're 1 turn through plus with an extra start from Clay. Their pitching's been good enough. Their biggest problem is they haven't hit. Luckily, they were bailed out with the Pete home run and then the cheapy runs they scored in the 11th inning. But the hope is, and the belief is, that they're going to start to hit. My only concern about the offense before we get to your emails, and I'm going to split the emails up into crazy reaction as we think they're going to lose and post-game euphoria, so you can try to see the difference between the two. And I'll do my best to go through them. The only guy offensively, 1 through 9, that I look at and I say there's a level of concern, besides Beatty, because that's obvious, is the Vientos thing, because it feels mental. It feels like the last day and a half has rattled him. And I just hope it doesn't spiral into something worse. So that's the only reason why with Vientos there's a pause of Lindor's got to put his arm around him. Basically, maybe he's going to need that standing ovation on opening day. And remember when we were down there at spring training and we spoke to Mark for 5 or 8 minutes on the Rico, that was one of the first things I asked him about, was that feeling what opening day is going to be like. And you could see it. And you could hear it in his voice. Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to feel that energy. And maybe something as simple as feeling that energy on Friday is going to be enough. We're not in some weird spot where anybody's going to boo him. He could get booed eventually, but it's not happening immediately. So it's not like we have to worry about, the Met fans are going to treat him like crap on opening day. That's not the case. He goes 0 for 4, they may, but certainly not to start. So that's my only level of concern, that it did feel mental a little bit with Mark Vientos so far.
Yeah, I mean, but listen, it's not like they're going to put Beatty in there and all of a sudden, Beatty's going to take the job from him, unless he could. I mean, that's always a possibility if they sit him.
They don't. No, you're right. They don't have another option.
So
you're right.
And listen, Mark Vientos, again, we did talk to him, and he seems very confident. He seems, I'm not saying cocky at all, but he seems confident. And I think that Lindor has done a really good job. He did this last year of really taking these younger kids and putting them under his wing. And I'm not going to be surprised if Vientos comes out of it sooner than later. And to be fair, the Met fans are going to be crazy. The only person that may get booed is Danny freaking Young, because he can't get anybody out. He keeps on screwing everything up.
Well, let's start with that. Michael Krause writes, DFA Danny Young. They have to DFA Young. He's batting practice for any major leaguer worth a damn. There has to be better options in the farm. Not sure how long it takes for David Stearns. We've seen him have a quick trigger at times, and it may be too soon for his liking, but I think it's inevitable. Well, he's out of options. So if they send him down, they lose him, which I don't think anyone's crying over. Charlie writes, and this is a great point, kind of piggybacking the criticism I had for Mendy, if Brazoban is warming up in the 11th, why doesn't he just pitch, come on, Carlos? I think that was a clear, I'm over-exaggerating the lefty-lefty thing. That's why Danny Young came into the game. He shouldn't have come into this game.
That was Brazoban's first save, right, in his career.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I can't believe it.
Yeah, you're right. It is kind of surprising because he's been around a little bit that he wouldn't accidentally get a save with Miami. But, yeah, first major league save. If I was scoring the game, I would have put a little star right there.
How about that?
Giacomo writes, maybe an odd observation, but between the defensive plays of Luis Torrens and Nick Fortes keeping pitch after pitch right in front of him with a man on third and again in the 11th, it really makes you realize how important a defensive-minded catcher still is in this league. This game could have been so much different without the 2 blocks behind the plate. It is an excellent point. And we're a long ways away from this, but we had this discussion in September of last year. If Torrens is going to defend like this, Alvarez better be Mike Piazza because Torrens gives him a lot defensively. Now, he's not perfect blocking balls in the dirt. And, of course, he was complimenting Nick Fortes. But where he is great is stopping a running game, which he's incredible at.
Can I do you one favor for Giacomo?
Yeah.
Can I just get his name right? It's Giacomo.
Sorry.
I don't even have to look at the name. I just know. I just know it ain't no Giacomo.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Dominic, I think I got that name right. Writes, Evan, first of all, huge fan. Oh, we appreciate that. Started listening to you with Carton and listen to the Rico every morning on my way to work. Well, we thank you. We appreciate you who download the Rico Brogna. If you're on your way to work this morning, welcome. Thank you for listening. If you're watching live on YouTube, welcome. Thanks for wasting your Wednesday night with us. Dominic writes, I want to talk about Mark Vientos. I'm typing this in the 8th inning of Game 3, Mets versus Marlins, and I am fed up with Mark Vientos. In between the lack of hustle in Game 2 and the fielding gaffes in Game 3, his head is clearly out of it. If I'm Mendoza, I have to think about sitting him in the home opener on Friday. The Mets are trying to evaluate Acuna versus Beatty anyways. You could put Beatty at third, Acuna at second, let him sit and try to get his head together before this becomes more common. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. Not there yet, Dominic. I think that right now, and I'm kind of guessing on this, I think he needs a hug more than he needs a slap in the face. I really do. I think that give him a little bit more time. Could we get to a point where we talk about sitting him or benching him? Sure. I'm just not there yet. Matt writes, Vientos looks like he is mentally a Hall of Famer who doesn't have to put up more than one good year. Beatty is a walking out. Holmes is lucky he didn't give up 5 with his erratic pitches against a true major league lineup. This is not going to go well for him. There will be plenty of 4-inning outings. The 8th inning is a byproduct of the Marlins being a minor league organization. Pete is a big leaguer, eventually will do his damage against non-competitive pitching. Lindor, this team looks like it stinks. Lucky Alonso home run made a game that really wasn't even that close. I get the Marlins stink. What do you want me to tell you? I mean, you got to beat who's in front of you. Like, I get it. The competition is going to be better. The competition will be better over the weekend against the Blue Jays, a team I'm very high on. They have a better lineup. They're going to face some real good major league pitching. They've got some good major leaguers in their bullpen. Jeff Hoffman's over there closing. I get it. There's a step up in competition, but I don't like to minimize any kind of victory because wins are wins. Just like losses are losses. You lose, it's a loss. You win, it's a win.
Yeah, and not to mention, yesterday we said, too, like, the Marlins don't know that they suck yet. They were 4-2 coming into today.
You're right. Tom writes, this is going to be an overreaction email. This is, of course, while the Mets are losing. Beatty and Holmes are spring training all-stars. Put Holmes in the bullpen. He can't go more than 5 innings, and whatever you do, and do whatever you want with Brett Beatty. Also, why is Tyrone Taylor playing? I'm not as discouraged as Tom and even you are, Hoff, about Clay Holmes. Beatty, you're right. I mean, Beatty's, I don't know when that leash ends. I'd love to ask Mendy, not that he's going to give an honest answer about this, but how do you measure the patience when it's such a small sample size, but it's not because the guy has a sample size of 4 years? You know what I mean? Like, it's a small sample size for this season, but he failed last year. He failed the year before that. So I don't know what the exact moment is. Clayton Caldwell writes, this is just a very simple email, and I want to read it for all the haters out there. Is that clutch enough for you? He's talking about Pete Alonso. So we're doing this game live nowadays. We rank Pete Alonso home runs. We decide if it's clutch, not clutch, crap. We do that. So his first home run, a grand slam that gave the Mets the lead, or they were up by a run. It was a grand slam that put them up by 4. We all agreed was clutch, even though it was early in the game.
Sure.
This one may be tricky, Pete. It's the 8th inning. There are 2 outs, and you're down by 3, and he has a 9-pitch at-bat that gets capped off by a 3-run home run. Is that clutch?
Well, when you compare it to the Milwaukee Brewers home run, maybe it's a notch down. I don't know. Yeah, of course it's clutch. Of course. I mean, you're talking about a guy, and you nailed it, dude. You freaking nailed it, because you said after his home run in that Milwaukee game, it seemed like it unlocked something, and he just seemed to be calmer at the plate, and he's carried it into the first 6 games of the season. Even when he hasn't hit the ball, him walking, him even if he gets out, he's hitting the ball hard. They have to make good plays to get him out. It's a different Pete Alonso. Actually, it's not a different Pete Alonso. It's a Pete Alonso from like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. So Pete's been here for a long time. So, evaluating his career can't be done in just like one sentence. But I always thought Pete was a fairly clutch player. Like, I didn't think he was a dog in big spots. I always thought he was a relatively clutch player. Last year, he did not have a clutch year. I'd be the first to admit it. Watching him over the course of 162, it left a lot to be desired. But what annoyed me was this assumption of he's never clutch, which almost ignored the first 5 years of his Met career. And so before that Milwaukee game, I remember doing it on the air with Tiki, and I think I did it here on the Rico. I said, I know it's in him. I know he's been clutch before, so it's there. It's not like he just can't handle big moments. And yeah, it really has worked like a faucet. He hits that home run against Milwaukee that saves his Met legacy, that saves the Mets season. He ends up performing really well in the DS against the Phillies, the CS against the Dodgers, and it's a small sample size. But yeah, he's been, we're 6 games in. We're 6 games into the season. The Mets are 3-3, which, by the way, I said let's sign for 3-3 at the beginning. So I'm fine with 3-3. I remember even saying that. Just get the 2 against Miami, get a game against Houston, let's go. But Pete Alonso through 6 games has kind of picked up where he left off from the postseason. And hopefully that continues over the next, 154 games. But yeah, it does feel like that may have relaxed him just a tad.
And I know that he spoke a lot after the game, and he's very happy. He said, can't wait to see everybody at home. I mean, that's going to talk about electric, dude. I mean, he may get a bigger ovation than Juan Soto. I mean, there is a huge possibility.
No doubt. So what we're going to do on Evan and Tiki, I'm very excited about this, is I'm going to go to opening day, but I'm going to be late because I do have a radio show to do from 2 to like 3:15 because there's a Yankee day game. But I have hired an intrepid reporter. So I'll be on the air from Manhattan, WFAN at 2 o'clock. And I got somebody who is a fair and balanced person who will be in the building at Citi Field, who will call into Evan and Tiki and let us hear the Alonso reaction and the Soto reaction. And then if we can't hear it clearly through his phone, he'll give us a fair answer on reaction sounds. And that is my dad. So he'll be my he'll be my intrepid reporter because unfortunately I can't be in the building, but I'll be there eventually. So if you're going to the Mets home opener, you will notice someone in the 2nd or 3rd inning racing through the concourse, and that'll be me. So it'll be fun. Ignacio writes, and this is a 2-parter. Okay, he wrote one at 6:56, and he followed one up a little bit later on. I always love the follow-up emailers. Ignacio writes, LOL Mets. Oh, man, do I even need to say anything? I mean, can it get any worse than this? On the bright side, I guess it's better this is happening now than in September. But still, what the F is going on? I swear Soto just decided that he's going to play soccer over there in right field. You can't make this stuff up. And the best part, we're talking about the Marlins, the same Marlins whose payroll is about as big as my grocery bill, $20. Come on, this is brutal. And then I guess after the Alonso home run, he writes, ignore that last email, Evan, LFGM.
Hey, by the way, I thought I remember hearing that the Marlins were open for business. Did they ever actually sign anybody this season? Like, I know they had players playing, but
open for business. They're selling Sandy Alcantara, basically. that whole thing was really weird too. I did want to address it. That Look, I've said here on the Rico that I think the Mets are going to acquire Sandy Alcantara. I just read the tea leaves on the Marlins are not going to compete in the next 2 or 3 years. They're not trying to compete, to your point. Sandy is signed this year and for 2 more years. And I think if you want to maximize your return, you trade him now, where you can have more teams than just big market teams involved because you don't have to worry about paying him as a free agent. He signed for 2.5 more years. And I believe, knowing David Stearns, this would be the player he'd open up the vault for because of how good he is and because of the contract status. You know, you trade for Dylan Cease, he's a free agent at the end of the year. So that's not new. I don't think any of us are surprised about that. And I said it on the Rico preseason prediction. The Mets will get him at the deadline. Okay. I'm surprised that Met players were as honest as they were with Mike Puma when Puma asked them about Sandy Alcantara. There were these quotes that were so honest about how much they want him. In fact, I have a few right here. Juan Soto, it would be one of the best trades that we could have. I know we have great pitching, but adding a Cy Young winner like that would be huge. It's going to take a lot to get him. Lindor says it would almost be like adding Soto. You add Soto, it's going to help the team. You add Alcantara, and it's going to help the team. Starling Marte. He has the stuff and the mental makeup to be able to play in New York. He's got the mental strength and physical gifts to be able to have success here, and I think we have shown that we help pitchers even more. I don't remember, Hoff, players being as open about acquiring a guy who's legally on another team right now.
Yeah, I think that understand like the manager and the GM and those people can't talk about that, but the players being so free, it's very odd. And again, like you're talking about, I think it was sort of like it's going to take a lot to get him. You're talking about giving up your teammates. You're talking about some of these guys are not going to be here if we're going to get Sandy Alcantara. I mean, all right, I get you.
Honestly, I don't think it's going to cost a lot of teammates. I think it's going to be more minor leaguers. Like if I had to put together a hypothetical Sandy Alcantara trade, I think the only major leaguer that may be in it is Brett Beatty. And the only reason I say I know most Met fans are like, fine, send them over there. I had heard for years that they had an interest in Beatty. So I don't think he'd be the key to the trade. I think he'd be more of a throw-in. But I think to get a trade like that done, you're talking Jet Williams. You're talking about Sproat and Tidwell, possibly. I know a lot of Met fans love Luis Angel Acuna, and I want to love him too. I don't think he's as highly regarded to the world as he is to us. So I know he's a deal breaker to some Met fans. I don't think he's a deal breaker for the Marlins. I don't think that's what's necessary.
Well, just real quickly, though, because you named like 4 names already, whatever. And my issue is this. David Stearns has his idea of how to, bring in pitching, starting pitching. It's very, if it's after a certain age, very minimal contract. You finally have starting pitchers that could potentially be in the majors for a while. You have control under them, and then you're going to trade them away for Sandy, which is great. But then you're still going to then eventually have to sign more pitchers, which means let's go back to the free agency and sign another older vet for 1 or 2 years and hope he works out.
So I tend to agree with you, and I remember saying about Cease, I would not trade Brandon Sproat for Dylan Cease. And look, who knows what Brandon Sproat's going to be. His first spring training start, first minor league start wasn't great. Not that it means that much, but he may never make it. We have no idea. But for the reasons you gave, I wouldn't want to trade young pitching for I wouldn't want to trade young. Let me phrase this correctly. I don't want to trade young pitching when I clearly have an organization that's doesn't have the stomach to go give 7-year deals to starting pitchers. Sandy Alcantara is an exception because of the fact that you're getting 3 years out of him right off the top. So let's play a little game. Let's say Brandon Sproat, who we have no idea what he is at the major league level. Once he comes up, you have control of him for 6 years. You're getting 3 years from a guy who's already proven he can win a Cy Young, as opposed to 1 year of Dylan Cease, not even 1 year, a half a year, and then the odds are you're not re-signing him. So I think it's different. I may not want to give up multiple top pitching prospects. Maybe I'd be more having the stomach to trade one and more position player prospects where I've got more depth. But I think Sandy's a little different. Like, I don't have the stomach to trade those guys for Cease as a free agent, but you're getting Sandy for the rest of this season. Though I do want to bring this up because it was a good point made by a guy, and I think it was in my email or DMs, who said Sandy is coming off Tommy John. So we got to watch out. Like, how available is he going to be in the second half of the season. Mets trade for him in late July. Okay, great. If he's already thrown 110 innings, how much more does he have left? I don't know if the Mets would technically have an innings restriction on him, but you're right. Got to keep an eye on that. You can't just ignore that. But you are getting 2 more years after that, and that's the value where it would be worth giving up more.
And then do you think, I mean, we just saw like today and yesterday, like 3 or 4 guys get extensions. Crochet, Christian Campbell, if I'm correct. Is that his name, Christian Campbell?
Red Sox.
Profar, and I believe there was one other guy that just got Ketel Marte. They all got extensions. Do you think that they're going to throw an extension on Sandy, or just let those 3 years play out?
Jackson Merrill got the extension as well.
Jackson Merrill. Who did I say? Profar?
No, I think you said Profar. He got busted for steroids.
Yeah, he got busted for the other nonsense.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it would be, you've got this elite level pitcher signed to a reasonable contract. I guess you could try to tack on 2 years since you have the leverage, but that's for if you go make a trade for him. I think they're going to be into it. It's just going to be a few months away. Let's hear some positive emails, because those emails I read were from when things looked bad, down 4-1, limp dick offense. You know the deal. Let's go to, I got to read this from Dan. Dan is tremendous. Dan writes, that was a textbook 2024 win. Do absolutely nothing for 90% of the game. Can't deny that. Finally get guys on after everyone thinks you're dead. Hit a bomb to dig yourself out of the grave. Somehow pull a game out of your ass you had no business winning. I mean, it's all true from Dan. Even had Pete Homer deja vu. He mentions the Tiger game. That was the game they were getting no hit in. He hit the game tying home run in the ninth. They won it with the Tyrone Taylor game win. P.S. Vientos can't have the game he had today after what he pulled yesterday. No, I mean, you're not wrong about that. You're not wrong about that.
Hey, just random question here before we go back to it, because we're talking about extensions and stuff like that. Is it too early to talk about Pete Alonso extension?
I don't want to be honest with you. I love Pete. The last thing I want to talk about, think about, argue about, discuss is extension. I don't want to hear it. The only thing I will do, or you can do it if you want, is continue to supply us updated stat comparisons of Pete Alonso versus Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
No problem. I will keep
By the
track
way,
of that.
we'll get a firsthand look at it because he's coming to town this weekend. And if you idiots, no Met fan will do this, but if you idiots cheer Vladimir Guerrero Jr. because you're recruiting him, I will disown you. That's embarrassing stuff. So let's not do that.
So boo Vlad?
Yeah, he's on the Blue Jays.
Okay.
Damn right you boo Vlad. Clayton Caldwell has 3 stars of the series. Obviously, we haven't made it official, but yes, the Rico star of the series is Pete Alonso. More on that in a few minutes. But he's going Pete Alonso number 1, Luis Torrens number 2, and Huascar Brazaban number 3. Lance writes, I was halfway through writing an angry email about why Carlos Mendoza would ever bring in Danny Young for that 11th inning. But all I'll say is he's got to go the second Dednell Nunez is ready. Overall, good trip. No one is really playing bad except Beatty and Lindor, and both of those were pretty predictable, although Beatty's drop-off from spring is even worse than usual. Vientos' last game and a half is a little concerning, and Pete looks like he picked up right where he left off in the playoffs or even 2019. The way Luis Torrens is playing, what do you think about keeping him as an everyday catcher and using Francisco Alvarez at DH when he comes back? It would probably help his broken hand not to catch every day, and Torrens is in another league defensively. I mean, he threw out a runner at second with Edwin Diaz pitching. Also, this way we wouldn't lose Alvarez's bat for a late defensive change. It's a great question that's just way too early to discuss because there's so many factors that are going to get us there. Like, I agree with you. Torrens' defense is outstanding, and it's a great point that maybe it would help Alvarez to slowly come back and not catch all the time, but let him DH. And luckily, the Mets aren't clogged by a DH. Right now, their DH situation is Starling Marte and Jesse Winker. Like, no offense to both of those guys. They don't have to play all the time. So I don't think it's crazy. I just think we're so far away from it. We're far away from A, Alvarez coming back, and then B, what the rest of the team looks like. The complication to your idea is that you have to carry a third catcher. Like, you cannot deploy that with Alvarez and Torrens only being the catchers on the team. Doesn't work. So it's a later discussion, but file that one away, Lance. Is a really good idea. Billy Fitz writes, I have one question. Could this be the best bullpen of our lifetime? Wow. My God. There you go. He's 45, by the way, Billy Fitz. So he's basically our age. Multi-inning guys in Brazaban, Budo, and Kranick. A high-leverage righty, Reed Garrett, who, by the way, gets lefties out. A high-leverage lefty, Danny Young. I'm just kidding. He stinks. We need a second lefty. A setup, good humor. A setup man from both sides, Ryan Stanek and A.J. Minter, and a stud closer, Edwin Diaz. Stanek worries me a little as the eighth inning guy. I could see Brazaban or Garrett taking that spot, but the Met pen is loaded, and bullpens win championships. I'm getting moist. Way too early, bro. Way too early. I do agree that I love the fact they have multi-inning guys. Max Kranick has looked great. Jose Budo was outstanding in the finale of this series. So I like the multi-inning guys, but Ryan Stanek is not fully level of trust guy. AJ Minter's okay, though he was shaky in game 3 of this series. Reed Garrett is hot and cold, as we saw last year. And let's hope Edwin Diaz is a stud. I hope he is. So far, so good. I gave him credit for his 2 performances so far, but we got a long way to go. You want to hear a Juan Soto concern?
I do. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Screw it. It's before the home opener. Let's get the concerns out of the way.
Let's get him out of the way, especially a Soto one. We've barely mentioned Juan Soto's name on the Rico. Brian Javier writes, hi, Evan. Emailing for the first time. Love the podcast. You and Hoff do great work. Well, we appreciate that. What a wild ending to a poorly played series against Miami, apart from the first game. Watching that final game got me extremely frustrated, even though it's a game in April. From the errors defensively to terrible approaches at the plate, one can only hope it was one of those lack of focus games. However, that better not happen often or we will be in huge trouble. There's a lot to unpack from this game, but I'll focus on one topic. But first, Pete Alonso, I love you. I like that. Now, Juan Soto. I wanted to hear your thoughts on this topic because watching the game, it felt like he wasn't enjoying it at all. I know he was having a tough game up to this point besides the one hit, but not great at-bats, and he made an error. I don't think he made an error. Was that an error, the ball in right field that he moved
I don't think that wasn't an error, no.
Yeah, that wasn't an error, but yeah, he didn't come up with it clean. We thought we had a chance at throwing a guy out at the plate, but no, that's not an error, but I get it. But when Alonso tied the game in the 8th, his reaction wasn't what I was expecting. Not saying that he should be screaming at the top of his lungs, but show some emotion and excitement. You're back in the game. Watching the SNY broadcast, he just seemed not truly engaged, and I'm not sure why. When he got back to the dugout after the huge blast, everyone is screaming, and he's there. Few high fives with teammates, but no contagious smile. Even his last at-bat, when a major chance to put the game away, his body language wasn't the Soto we are accustomed to seeing. He barely even did the Soto shuffle today. But what really ticked me off was his body language when he was the free runner in extras. You're getting paid $800 million. The least you can do is give us a good secondary lead. And before the pitch is thrown, know where the outfielders are, so when someone hits a line drive, you can get a good read and score instead of doing what happened today. I know Nimmo squared the ball, but the outfielder was nowhere near catching that. He claims to want to get better defensively and be a better base runner, but his lack of focus and energy got the better of him today. I love Juan Soto. He is truly a generational talent, and I know that this is not going to be a consistent thing. He'll be great for us, and I'm excited to see what he will accomplish in the 2025 season. Let me know your thoughts, Hoff, too. You want to start with that? That's very interesting. I didn't notice any of that stuff that Brian mentioned, the body language of Juan Soto, but what's your feeling on that?
I mean, listen, I know that we watched him last year in the Bronx near the the bleach creatures, and there was a different vibe when he was on the field. But I've also heard that he's very serious too. So, like, if he's mentally going through something and not happy with his performance so far, because last year he started right away with the Yankees. He was unbelievable offensively. He was like the main catalyst for the Yankees. Basically, I think they swept the Astros last year in that first series, gunned down a runner at home. So he really hasn't had he had a home run, but he really hasn't his Met moment yet. And I mean, well, look, he went 2 for 12. He got on base 5 times because he walked 3 times. He scored a bunch of runs. I understand you're a little bit disappointed with his running game, but first of all, he's not fast. Let's be serious here. He did score from Pete Alonso's first double.
Yes.
Let's give a little credit for that one. I mean, he needed to hustle a little bit.
Thought he was going to be thrown out on that, but okay.
I know. But here's the thing is, like, let's be serious. In extra innings, I was disappointed with everybody. Everyone went station to station. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, there was multiple times where it's like, I was listening on the radio and they're like, oh, he has to hold up at second. He has to hold up at third. It was just a poor base running in general, so they're gonna have to work on those fundamentals going forward. So it wasn't just Soto; it was everybody. I'm not picking up on any negative energy really from Juan Soto right now.
I'm gonna be very honest about this. I am going, Brian, to rewatch the things you mentioned to see if now when I'm looking for it, if I agree with you. Because when Pete Alonso hits a game-tying 3-run home run, and I admit I'm also driving home, so I'm glancing at the game, not being able to stare at the TV. I didn't notice any of that. I will go back and watch and see if he was disengaged on the 3-run home run. The secondary lead thing, I mean, I'll rewatch that too, but I also think you're trying to be cautious in that extra inning where you don't want to take any risk of being thrown out with nobody out. You know, first and third, nobody out, as much as the Mets failed to score an inning earlier in that situation. I think you're trying to be smart in that spot. But I think your real point is that he was so down on himself, and he wasn't great, as we talked about, that he kind of let it take away from his enjoyment of what turned out to be a great Met win. And by the way, if that's true, that comes across very selfish. I admit that. If that's the case, I got to go back and watch it because as a team player, you're going to care more about the fact that, hey, we tied the game. We're coming back. It's not about you. If you're Juan Soto, would you rather go 4 for 5 and lose or 0 for 5 and win? We hope the answer is 0 for 5 and win. But I don't know, Brian. I didn't notice it. I will go back and watch it. And I promise you, on the next edition of Rico Brogna, maybe at the tail end of that edition of the Rico, I will give you my answer to that observation. But here's the moral of the story, folks. The Mets won a series against the Miami Marlins. It wasn't easy. It wasn't fun. It looked like we were about to start this season 2-4. But Pete Alonso saved us from embarrassing defeat. An umpire overturn saved us from an embarrassing defeat. Oscar Brazaban saved us from an embarrassing defeat. Now, we will make it official. The Rico star of the series is Pete Alonso. We will name a Rico star of the series after every series. So if you are listening for the very first time, Edwin Diaz and his 1-2-3 save in Game 2 of the Houston series earned him, kind of disappointingly, but earned him the Rico star of the series. And for this series win against the Miami Marlins, it is clearly Pete Alonso. Grand slam in Game 1 that blew the game open. Game-tying 3-run home run in Game 3 in the 8th inning. He went a combined 5 for 12 with 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, drew a couple of walks, had a bunch of full counts, and oh, by the way, played some stellar defense. So Pete was the best player on the field for these 3 games, and he helped the Mets win 2 out of 3 against the Miami Marlins. Friday afternoon at Citi Field. Yes, it's the home opener, baby. Tyler McGill against Kevin Gausman. We'll have a drive home, assuming everything technically works, assuming you're able to do it, Pete. I can't bully you around. If you're busy, you're busy. But after the game, Friday, with my dad and my son, we will attempt to give you a drive home edition of the Rico Brogna. If that fails, we'll eventually give you a Rico Friday night. Should be in your inbox if you download the podcast either Friday night or Saturday morning. And then, of course, a series recap that we always provide you. We do appreciate you interacting with the Rico Brogna. You can always email us, thericob@gmail.com. I very much enjoyed the negative into positive interactions over the Game 3 victory. And here we are, a 3-3 baseball team heading back to Queens to open the home portion of the season. Thank you very much for listening, subscribing, and downloading Rico Brogna.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Rico Brogna podcast. It's amazing, isn't it? Make sure you download it now to keep it on you at all times.